Hi there, I'm Chuck Rozanski, and this is my comic book store, Mile High Comics. And it's more than just a regular comic store. I mean, it's 65,000 square foot building, which is an acre and a half under one single roof. We have 30-foot high ceilings, and some of our customers have coined the phrase that this is our cathedral of comics. And if you go online, you can see a fair number of videos that I've made in the past about Mile High Comics, my personal philosophy on running the company and things like that. I can tell you, however, that the store constantly evolves. So even if you were here last week, there's new stuff that you didn't see. But anyway, this particular video is about up there, way off in the distance. There's a mezzanine, a second floor, and it only incorporates a small part of the overall building. But we get a lot of questions about it. So we're going to head in that direction, and I'm going to take over from my friend Doug, who's doing this initial filming for us. But we'll just, for those of you who have a main interest in Pueblo pottery, but you've never understood just how in the heck I can afford to buy all that stuff, let's walk through here and you'll get a little bit of a sense. And my dog Mickey, come on, bro. Yes. So, Mile High Comics is a comic book store, but actually it's a pop culture store. And what we've done is we've tried to make this place a safe space for people in the city of Denver, so that anybody and everyone can come here and feel good and feel like they can get away from the troubles of the world. We have filled it with every kind of pop culture reference that you can imagine, and we're expanding it every day. The thing is that I take no money out of the store except for my pottery. I live very frugally, and so the store itself gets lots of working capital. Any money that we do make goes right back into making the store even better. And that's why I say that we're constantly improving. So today's a fairly typical day, and we have, I don't know, 50 or 100 people in the store, and they're all looking around, and the store goes off in unbelievable amounts of tangents. And the reason for that is that it's not square. It's not a rectangle like most stores. It comes to a point way off in the north end, and we have built all of our displays intentionally labyrinthian so that people will get lost in here and will feel like there's always something new around the corner. And it actually has worked incredibly well. But right up there, you can see owls, at least owl butts, lots and lots of owl butts. And that's where people are always saying, what's up there? And more often than not, they want to go up there, and we just can't do that. There's too much fragile material up there, and also the vast majority of people, sad to say, have zero frame of reference. Okay, when I try to explain that there are these ancient Pueblo villages in New Mexico, a disturbing number of people don't even know New Mexico is a part of the United States. The frame of reference is just not there. So I try to not make myself frustrated by taking folks upstairs who don't know a piece of Pueblo pottery from a brick. I'm not into teaching Pueblo 101. It's not a public museum. It's a reference collection and a reference museum. And I don't mean to sound exclusionary or anything like that, but I run Mile High Comics. I run a farm up in Boulder. It's quite large, 32 acres. I have my life as a trans advocate and drag queen. That keeps me really, really busy. I run Mile High Comics, and then I also do Pueblo Treasures. So I'm trying to squeeze a lot into any given day, week, month. if people want to come by here and visit, I arrange tours, and if someone wanted to do legitimate research, I had one of my friends has a degree in archaeology, and he's doing a study of Mimbres and other Mogollon and Proto-Puebloan rainbirds, macaws, as illustrated in pottery. And that's the kind of project where I can really help, because I have a lot of examples of that, and they're very rare. So that's the kind of folks that this research collection was created to help out. So anyway, we will head over now, and I'll begin the actual pottery tour for those of you who'd like to see what the heck is up there. So I will take over from Doug now. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Here's Doug.
Welcome.
Okay. So the first thing that you see when you come into Mile High Comics, you see our rainbow stairs, and then you see the entrance that comes into the actual comic book store. But there's a lot of people who want to go up the rainbow stairs, both to take pictures and also because it's just very alluring. And there's a belief that these rainbow stairs are strictly a function of my being a part of the LGBTQ community, but that's not true. This was created as part of a design motif that brings you into the Pueblo Treasures Gallery in a spiritual way. On the sidewalls are very large murals that were painted by my friend Thomas Haller Buchanan, and they're made to represent Abanus, that are sacred deities of the Pueblo world, and these were originally painted on pottery by the man that I admire very much, Van Gutierrez. So Abanus are creatures of energy and light, and if you listen to the most common explanation that the Pueblo people will give you, it is that Abanus represent the kinetic energy of water, and that they represent the power and force of the energy that would be going through a dry arroyo during a flash flood. But the reality is that they are much more than that, and they represent the energy of the entire universe. And this is a discussion that if you come here to the museum, I can give you lots of time on this particular subject. But be that as it may, here's a view of Mile High Comics from up above. And as you can see, it's a lot more than just comic books. A lot more. And lots of people come here because it's good for their spirit. Here's our store, Kitty, Cambridge. Cambridge is really, really good with my pottery. She sleeps with it at night. But when you come up to the top of the rainbow stairs, the rainbow stairs are supposed to be reflective of the journey of the Abanus through the universe. And here you begin by seeing a few owls in cases and some what's called this is poster painted pottery from mostly Tesuque Pueblo. There's, I believe, some heinous pieces that are mixed in, but it's mostly Tesuque. But then you come into the main part of the gallery, and the first thing that you see are owls. I don't know how many I have at this point, but I think it's approaching 400. There's maybe 500. There's Acoma over here on this one side. There's Heinous in here. There's a big giant cochiti down at the bottom. There's some prehistorics there. And you'll see a lot of prehistoric pottery here. These are Zuni owls that are in here, and oh my goodness, there's so many different styles and iterations of Zuni pottery. And there's even more over here on this side. There's some that go all the way back into the mid-1800s and to the time of the Stevenson expedition, which was around 1879, was the first one, 1880, 1881, 1883. They were looking for all kinds of different Zuni artifacts to take back to Washington, D.C., and they shipped back thousands and thousands in the new trains that had just arrived in New Mexico. Throughout this part of the gallery, there are also some very large pieces, some of which are Tarahumara, some of which are Magillon pottery. Here in these cases are some very large Magillons. This is plain ware. This is a Heinous jar that I just picked up. Have to find a place to safely put it, but for now it's resting okay. Very, very early Kachina votive figure here. Very rare. It's probably 1880s, 1890s. Down here we have corrugated ware of various kinds. There's banded neck corrugated, just different kinds of corrugated. Montara Humara. This is actually a gigantic beer jar. They used to brew corn liquor in these and then drink themselves guaro as part of a religious ceremony. And you can read about that online, but they would have to ferment their well, it's essentially moonshine in something. So they were very adept at making these gigantic, essentially oyas, and so I like them a lot. I tell everybody that's the oldest beer bottle in the world. And here we have more in the way of ancestral Puebloan. I've been told that this is a Verde Valley polychrome here. And this piece here I rescued from a collection that was in Massachusetts. A lot of early Proto-Puebloan material, Magillon material, was taken home by tourists in the 1800s and ended up, surprisingly, on the East Coast. Oh my God, I don't know how many were broken, but it was probably a lot. I'm going to go around the room this way now, just because I have genres here where we have pueblos that are mixed together. I like the different kinds of candle holders that they used to make for sale to tourists. So I have an amazing number of candle holders over in this area. There's more in other cases where I've had to keep them with their particular pueblo because I'm running out of room. Same thing with these little candy dish type birds, candy dishes, ashtrays. The Pueblo ladies used to make these in massive quantities because they were easy for tourists to tuck into their luggage and take home with them. And so they minimized the amount of really large oyas and storage jars and dough bowls and things like that. They really downsized everything starting in the 1880s so that they could give things more to tourist folks who were taking things home. And again, a great many of the pieces that they gave to people got broken. Salt and pepper shakers were another very popular, small, tuck it into your purse or small suitcase, and I have crazy number of different kinds of salt and pepper shakers here. One of the things that I emphasize, though, is that even though people were downsizing, they could do things that were insanely beautiful, even though they were intended for as tourist wear. These two Hopi birds, for example, are just gorgeous, and they match, and they're really well made. But it was tourist wear, and so tourist wear sometimes gets a bad name. But there was a lot of really great tourist wear that was done over the years that was quite well made, and by some of the most well-known and respected artists would do tourist wear because it paid the bills. And this ties in with sort of my political beliefs, which are that the Pueblo people during this period of time, there was a deliberate attempt. Here we've got some Santa Clara pieces. I had to move some Santa Clara out here. I've got Santa Clara everywhere, actually, because I ran out of room in my office. But anyway, it was a deliberate policy of the United States government to try and assimilate all the native peoples into the general populace, if for no other reason than they wanted to steal their land and water. And so job opportunities were non-existent around the Pueblos, and children were taken away and sent to boarding schools. And it was one of those things where oftentimes the men fell into addiction, and not just the men, sometimes women too, but the breadwinners would fall into alcohol addiction, and so the women were making these small pieces of pottery in order to keep their families alive, to pay for food on the table and the medical bills, and to try to keep the kids clothed. Here we have rain gods, which were first made in the original figures were not these kinds of rain gods with their little water jar or whatever. The original ones were these kinds of figures, which are called monos, and they featured actual genitalia, and they were used in ceremony in Kiva. And if you go back into pre-Columbian times, I have quite a few West Mexican pieces that also feature human genitalia. But as the American missionaries started dominating at the Pueblos, the penises and vaginas went away, and they were replaced with these little pots. Nobody says what's under the pots, of course, but they were replaced with these little pots. And there was a enterprising dealer by the name of Jay Gould in Santa Fe, and he started shipping these little votive figures back east as real rain gods by the barrel load. And there were all kinds of ethnographic shops that were in East Coast cities, and they would order a barrel of rain gods from Jay Gould, and then later Candelario took over, and from Jay Gould, and Candelario then was also shipping them all the way up into the 1930s or maybe even the 1940s. So rain gods were a big business, and as you can see, the variety of them is pretty phenomenal. They were mostly made at Tesuque Pueblo, but I have some from pretty much every other Pueblo. This collection, and you're going to hear this a lot, this collection has the largest number of rain gods, largest number of owls, largest number of cattle holders. That's because no one has gone to the insanity, as I have, of gathering all these pieces together. Over here, I don't want to, I have a lot of friends at the Pueblos, Scar is still around, but Jane Baca, her mom, has since passed away. But these are animalitos that they made, and they won a lot of prizes at the Santa Fe Indian Market for their beautiful animal sculptures. Jane Baca was sister of the famous painter Pablito Velarde, and they would collaborate sometimes on these little dioramas. Very rare. There's some also some Jane Baca rain dots behind me, and this is my fleet of Pueblo canoes, which is sort of ridiculous because the Pueblo area is bone dry, and there's except for the Rio Grande, there's very little place where you can actually float a boat. But they sold well to tourists, and so they made them. And God bless them. I mean, if they could buy a quart of milk because they sold a little 4-color canoe, that's cool. Now, this area is an area that gets a lot of the serious collectors hot and bothered because cornmeal boxes, or various iterations of cornmeal boxes, because sometimes they're not rectangular, sometimes they're cylinders, sometimes, like the Zuni, do a lot of them that are terraced. These are very, very desirable among the collecting world, and rather hard to come by. Some of them were made for tourist sale, but actually the majority of them were used by people at the Pueblos to store either their cornmeal or their pollen, through which they did their morning prayers. And so they have come up on the market, but they're not common. And in the old days, and by old days I mean prior to the arrival of the Spanish, so pre-1492, this one here, for example, is a Mogollon corrugated, and I've read from some of my archaeology people that they were using these in Kiva to hold water, and they were part of the water blessing ceremonies. But I have a lot of lidded boxes and jars. This Zuni male figure, very, very rare. As a general rule, no one was allowed to make human figures at Zuni. This one and 2 female figures showed up at a large gallery in Santa Fe, and I wasn't able to buy the other 2. This one took me a year to pay off. But here are more cornmeal boxes, and you'll see more as we go through the individual cases. Okay, we have just now touched on one room, and now it gets crazy. People ask me a lot, do you really have 12,000 pieces of Pueblo pottery? And my answer is, yeah, I got at least 12,000 pieces of Pueblo pottery. And the vacuum sitting right here is a reminder that I am the only one who works here. I am the chief cook and bottle washer, and I do this in between all of my other things that I do. And this display right here alone could take me a couple of months of research to figure out what everything is that's in it, which pieces, because these are all West Mexican, a little bit of South American, a little bit of Central American, Yucatan type material. But I buy these, I set them aside, and I'm hoping that at my dotage that I can spend some time researching them, or if I can't, that someone will come along and who has a greater knowledge base than I do and will be able to help me. Here you've got some Hopi architectural pieces. I am particularly fond of Pueblo architectural pieces. They were made at a lot of the different Pueblos, and for the most part they were like this, broken.
in the course of taking them wherever in the heck back east that they went. This is something I want to emphasize about my museum, and that is that I do not like boring pottery. So folks who are looking for pottery that is squeaky clean, bright, beautiful, polished, the kinds of attributes that really appeal to what I call the white folk, that's not, I don't have a lot of that. That is not what this is about. I have a lot of unsigned pottery. I have a lot of pottery that has nicks and dings. I don't care. This display of Hopi pottery, for example, of which there's easily 1,000 pieces in this display. I had to add a couple of levels going up because I just ran out of room. But some of this pottery that's here, I mean, these are some of the rarest pieces in the world. I especially like the ones that are the white and black on red, because that's a takeoff on the Mogollon 4-mile polychrome. The Hopi trace some of their clans back to the people that migrated in from central Arizona and went to northern Arizona to join the Hopi people. So when I can see pieces that directly tie in, I like that a lot. I do have some Kachina figures that are in here. That is not my area of expertise. I don't even try. The ones that I pick up, I use as decorator pieces in between. This gets way too complicated for any one person to know all of this stuff. So I focus pretty much all of my energy on the potteries. But of course, saying that, I had someone sell me an incredibly rare collection of over 200 Hopi Kachinas, and I've got to unpack those and get those out. One thing that I can show you is that I have a lot of stuff on the floor. And the reason why I have a lot of stuff on the floor is because I've just flat out run out of room. And, you know, when you see, you know, things that are 1,000 years old, or a black on red San Ildefonso polychrome, or a beautiful Hakeem era jar from 700 years ago, it kills you that I can't give these things better display. But I've run out of showcases, and my Mile High Comics store is doing so well that I can't justify stealing showcases away from Mile High to hold potteries when our Mile High Comics store is what is the golden goose that funds everything else that we do. So it's a difficulty, because as you look down the row here, there's just hundreds of pots now that I have on the floor. It's another reason why I'm not real keen on having a lot of people come up here and visit. If you know your stuff and you really just have to see the museum, talk to me, and I'll see if I can find a time when I can give you a tour. This is all Cochiti pottery back here, by the way. And it keeps going, but I'm going to make, well, I'll go to the end of Cochiti, because Cochiti is some of my favorite pottery because it's so interesting and evocative. There's just all kinds of different figures that you see, and I really like it. There's a really famous Cochiti artist right now who's everybody's flavor of the month, by the name of Virgil Ortiz, and he does this incredibly wonderful bondage type art that is based on the gay leather community, and that's cool. But this is the kind of thing that he was doing when he was a very young man, a teen most likely. I have one of his mermaids around here somewhere, and that's another really great. So I have pieces by a lot of noteworthy artists, and kids, I don't recommend trying to put this kind of collection together unless you have an external source of funding that is really considerable. because I've impoverished myself doing this. When my mom passed away, I sold her house, put every cent into pottery. I sold my building over on 56th Avenue. I'm putting every cent into pottery. This is not easy, and it requires a degree of passion and dedication that most people don't have. This is Isleta pottery down here from south of Albuquerque. And I'm going to go back this way now. I've got more just fantastic storage jars back here. Huge. I mean, just huge storage jars. But I want to go back because one of the most common questions that I get, and I'm going to mock a little bit because, well, it drives me crazy. I get folks who think they know a little bit about Pueblo pottery, and so the first thing they say is, "You got any of them there Marias?" And it's just like, God, yes, I've got Marias. Of course I have Marias. But I got a Maria sitting on the floor because I don't have any place to put it. I got Marias up here. I got, Maria and Julian Cornmeal boxes. Yeah, try to find one of those, girl. Those are tough to find. But I have, things that are way more rare than Maria and Julian. And I like Maria and Julian. Oh my God, Maria, when she polished really well, this bowl down here. Now I'm not sure if Maria polished this or if her sister polished it. That's always, Maria was a brand name. I mean, she was a factory, and so she was not the only one in her family who was turning out pottery, and she signed for a lot of people that some of whom, like Margaret Tafoya, weren't even at San Ildefonso. That's what they did back in the 1930s when the United States government is trying to wipe your culture and your people out. You do band together and you try to figure out ways to get around the dominant paradigm. That's a huge dough bowl up there, Carlos and Carmelita Dunlap, and just I really like the super early pieces that are micaceous, that they were actually using as cooking vessels. This is prior to the train starting to bring in lots of pots and pans and metalware. They still actually made pieces for use within the Pueblo, both water jars and then the more functional pieces. And I like getting those whenever I can. And as you can see, this is, I don't know, it may not be quite 1,000 San Ildefonso pieces, but I think it actually is. There's a lot per shelf. I very, very much like Marianita Roybal. She was Tanita Roybal's mother-in-law. And, oh my God, her polychromes from the 1870s, 1880s, just fantastic. I have a larger iteration of this one, which is that just got repaired down in at the repairers, and I got to pick it up probably this week. All kinds, but yeah, human figures. Encarnacion Peña was known as a painter, but he would create these figures, most likely used in Kiva. And they don't show up very often. I have two. I doubt very much in my lifetime if I will find three. And that's the thing about a lot of these. What you're seeing these days is a mass die-off of the collectors who put together collections during the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. All these people are dying now. And so my biggest problem is finding the means to afford to bring in all of these different pieces that are coming available. But if you as a collector are interested in this type of material, this is a golden age. I doubt if this will ever be repeated. We're seeing continuing destruction of older pieces, so there are fewer and fewer if you start thinking about the big California fires, or you think about the North Carolina floods, every time that there's a major environmental disaster like that, you see more pieces destroyed. People took things home. They were in their houses, in their china cabinets. If the house burns, that's it. That piece is gone. And so there is a constancy of diminishment. We're in Acoma right now, and Acoma Pueblo is south of Interstate 40, out in the high dry plains there to the west of Albuquerque. And they do a lot of white pottery, although they do some red. They definitely use red as a decoration a lot. But they have a type of clay called kaolin clay that they make a lot of pieces out of. And they also are quite imaginative, and some creators more than others, obviously. But they had some really great people doing Acoma pieces. One of the things that I run into is that there are a lot of folks who like big Acoma jars, and I have some. I mean, there's big jars here, but that's not. I like figural pieces and pieces that are fun, like these face bowls. A little figure like this. I believe she was a coin bank. This one is the bomb. I mean, what a great one. They used to, the Oya ladies used to dance with those Oyas up on their heads, balanced on their heads. So a lot of the really beautiful Oyas actually have an indented bottom for holding the Oyas. Love their cow pictures. Again, this was an affectation that was done to try and sell things to tourists. But then you get your really Angelina Medina with her unbelievable sculptures, just so evocative. This one features a shepherd singing to the soul of his lost sheep that he had to have butchered. Very sad. This one, again, Angelina did this one, is a sculpture that is supposed to represent the pain and terror of kidnapped and missing indigenous women and girls. So there's more to art than just getting funsies. When you get really involved with these communities and you get really involved with their history, you realize that they have suffered through incredible amounts of pain and oppression, and that it is beholden upon all of us to cherish that of their aesthetic output which has survived. And we have to try and protect things as much as we can. And that's where I've developed my own set of beliefs. Here we have Zia pottery. And Zia pottery, this is a very old Zia storage jar. And I've been told this was about 1820 to 1840. I love it a lot. But the Zia, mostly at Zia, they would turn out, they did lots of canteens, but they did lots of these little bowls. Something that you'll see over and over and over again are these bowls and these little jars with roadrunners on them. Or they also did the bluebirds too, but mostly roadrunners. I mean, they're at Zia, you see roadrunners everywhere. And having recently gone down there and seen roadrunners myself, they're really kind of cool. The roadrunners and the quail down there are awesome to be able to experience. So, but when you're looking at these pieces, what I look for are things that are unique. I really like the painting that Ralph Aragon does on, and the Martinez did also, but that Ralph Aragon did on the jars, where they would take a traditional jar but then use acrylics to paint on them. Here's some Danica here. That's actually a Apache game dancer that's been painted on a Zia jar. I could not buy that. The things that are really unique and interesting. I mean, I can get a Roadrunner any day of the week. Go onto the internet right now and you can buy yourself 50 Roadrunners. Try to find one of their little architectural pieces. I have a dear friend in New Mexico who collects them also, and he always seems to be one step ahead of me at getting them. But I got a few, and I'm grateful to have them. And that's the thing, is that I have this spiritual belief that pottery comes to me as a safe haven. It comes to me to be protected and to be cherished, and that's what I'm here for. By the way, when you're when you're walking around here, you can see things. This is a proto-Hopi jar. I'm not sure how big it is. I think it's like 18 inches. We constructed, if you look inside it, it was put together from sherds. But this is called a Jedido jar, and it's about 700 years old. And here it sits quietly on the floor. These are Verde Valley pieces here. And it just goes on and on and on. Now we're into Okeawenge, San Juan. The Spanish tried to make this the capital of colonial, the first capital of colonial New Spain. But the folks at Okeawenge were not real cooperative. Pope came from there, if I remember my history correctly, and he's the one that led the Pueblo Revolt of 1680 and kicked the Spanish out, at least for a period of time. And they turned out some really nice pottery, but it's important to realize that this ain't what they used to do. So what they used to do were these really beautiful two-tone. Sometimes they did them, they would fire them black, so there are black and two-tone black ones, and then there's the ones that are the tan and red, with the tan being the underlying table clay. But starting in the 1930s, they started doing this, what was called revival artwork, and I like it. I mean, there were some people doing revival art that just did fantastic pieces. But I like the older. Here's a really beautiful older Okeawenge piece. Really nice. But again, I like things that are not boring. So this Luteria Atencio cat figure, which probably represents a mountain lion, is the bomb. It was made as an ashtray so she could sell it to a tourist. But there's more going on here than just something for tourists. And then here, these crazy frogs with their surfboard candle holder. Where did that come from? Some of the craziest shit. I have a lot of pieces here, about over 70 of them, that were rescued from a sale that the Denver Art Museum did in a fit of madness. This is a very, very early Okeawenge piece. Again, notice the unslipped Tewa clay as the base, and then the red Santo Domingo slip put on afterwards. That was on a shelf that fell down in the basement, and so they decided to get rid of it. But these were all pieces that were put together by Frederick Douglass, who was legendary. He took over in the 1950s and accumulated some of the coolest pieces in the world for the Denver Art Museum. And so, of course, they had a big old auction and sold them off. Which is why I'm not, when other people start walking on water around, or telling me that museum people walk on water, try again. Okay, museums are run by individuals who all want a bigger office and a bigger desk and a better job at a bigger institution, and so they're just companions on the way. And so you have to just have a degree of pragmatism. This is all Zuni pottery right in here. I don't have a lot of Zuni pottery. I don't want to buy the same thing over and over again, and they do a lot of the same thing. But this one right here, Nelly Bika did this incredible. It's an emulation of a type of pot that was done in the 1700s, and sort of, I call them mushroom pots. Very rare, and I really like things that are rare. As the entranceway that we went through when we first came up here into the gallery indicated, Avanyus are very important to me. It's part of my personal spirituality. And here I have my own shrine, and this features 2 home shrines that were originally at Zuni, and then quite a few antler pieces, some mud heads. Here's a Kolowisi that was done as a rattle. Now that's a direct takeoff of a piece that that they picked up during the Stevenson expedition. I actually saw it pictured in one of the Bureau of Ethnology reports from, I believe, 1883. So, but someone at Zuni decided to make another one, and they did a really great job. Oh my God! Here's sort of technically another little home shrine here, although this is much smaller than the others. Again, I just picked up this wonderful little Zuni architectural work. Going down this way, we have a lot of West Mexican and Chupacuaro pieces from central Mexico. This entire shelf is Jedito of different types. I mean, there are over 400 established types of pre-Columbian Southwest pottery. Do not ask me. I don't know. This is an area where I know just enough to be dangerous and not enough to actually be knowledgeable. But I'm hoping that in my dotage that I'll be able to do the research so that I can attribute more better. Here we have a lot of pieces that are Muggione. We were talking earlier about, this is not a 4-mile polychrome. I forget it's a takeoff on that. It's not a Pinedale. I don't know. I got again, I've got to look into these. What do they say? Oh, they call it a 4-mile. Okay, so they're saying that one is a 4-mile polychrome. Well, whatever. But you know, you've got a lot. I've got pieces with Tularosa swirls and things like that, and the goal is to pick up the rarest of the rare. There were figures that were being used back prior to the arrival of Columbus, and occasionally they show up. I have a few of those, but like this one is a complete modern reproduction. And so it is not the real deal. I have a little bit in the way of lithic work. I have one paint palette here. I have some beads. I have, these are called shaft straighteners. They were used for making arrows. And then you have mauls and axes. You know, there's a St. John's polychrome back there. Just all kinds really cool. I have bone and shell pieces. I really have focused on pieces that are a little bit out of the ordinary. A few labels, a lot of not reproduction, but a lot of restored work. Almost nothing here is original. I try to avoid anything that has a kill, but once in a while, sometimes I bid on a lot and I get something with it. This is a Membrace kill piece, but it has that really beautiful swallow in it. And then there's more. These pieces here all came from a single collector, and I actually went down to Springerville, Arizona, to the Rudd Ruin, which some of these were ostensibly out of. And I don't think that actually holds up after being down there. I think that the folks that had these were spinning a little bit of a tale. But this particular jar did come from Springerville, and it actually it still has the seeds inside of it that were stored in it. Springerville, in case you've never been down there, there's an incredible ruin called Casa Malpais. I highly recommend going to see it if you've never seen it. It was a sacred site in the day, and it's a sacred site today for the Zuni and the Hopi people, at the very least, probably the Acoma as well. But the Zuni, hardcore. And you need to be very, very respectful when you go there, because you are visiting a sacred site. But oh my God, it is so cool. It's in an old lava flow, and there are burials beneath it, and there's a kiva that you are allowed to enter, and it is a very, very sacred space. So this is pottery from the desert here, from way down south. This is from around Phoenix and then south of there. So a lot of this is Maricopa and or Tohono O'odham. And yeah, they did really nice red pottery, and then they'd also do two-tone. They do like here where they do red and tan. And their red and tan pottery can be really, really beautiful. But these are the folks that are basically the descendants of the Hohokam, who were incredible farmers. And most people have no idea about this, but the population of the Phoenix Valley was pretty close to 20,000, maybe even more. I've heard estimates as high as 50,000. It was the largest settlement in North America. Was around Phoenix and south of Phoenix, Casa Grande. They had ball courts and pyramids, and practically no one in America knows anything about it. It's crazy. There's a little bit more. I'm so out of space that I'm tucking incredibly rare pieces all over the place, just to give them a safe spot. But for those of you who know pottery, you know what I'm talking about. These two shelves are all emulations by my friend Michael Cantina. I have a ton of Michael's stuff still at home that I haven't been able to bring in here. But he would do things like an emulation of this is a ladle, an Anasazi ladle or a Proto-Puebloan ladle. And what makes it really interesting to me is that these checkerboards were actually, well, there's one of two ways. The Hopi do corn sometimes in these kinds of checkerboard arrays, but all through the Southwest, especially central Arizona, they used to plant agave, and they would use agave. They would eat it. I mean, they would boil and eat the root, but they also used it for fiber. And agave was very, very important to the Puebloan people, and there were 5 cultivars. You can go to YouTube. There's a crazy guy who studied this to death, and he has a bunch of YouTube videos, and they're fascinating. When I wrecked my truck last year and I was stuck in bed for a month, I watched everything that he had out, and I bought his books too. Great stories, but those kinds of checkerboard patterns, when you see them, more often than not, they reflect these gigantic agave fields that they used to plant. Which, by the way, a lot of them are still there. The agave survived after the people all left or were killed. This is Mojave pottery here, and the Mojaves lived in the real serious desert. They lived out there by Needles, California, where it's just like hotter than hell, and then south of there. And they were Colorado River Basin people. And Mojave pottery is a little hard to get. First of all, because they didn't have very many potters, but also, and this is something that I run into conflict with occasionally. The Mojave people believe that material objects that were created by someone who was living and then has passed need to be destroyed because those objects tether that person to this plane of existence and do not allow them to move on. And so when the School of Advanced Research received all of Rick Dillingham's Mojave pieces and decided they were going to do a book about them, which is right here, they were told by the Mojave elders, oh, hell no, you can't, because you can't show some things. And so it turned into a discussion. And in those days, the power was mostly with the museums, so they were able to negotiate that the book did get done and that a lot of cool things were shown, oftentimes by people who they did identify, like Annie Fields, who made things and who then passed away. But these are all Annie Fields figures right here, because she used to do these wonderful, what are called yokes, Mojave yokes, and the women actually did wear these. Back in the day, they would be bare-breasted, but they would wear these really elaborate beaded outfits. Ironically, today, I doubt if the Mojave book could be published because the most recent administration, Deb Haaland in particular, rewrote the NAGPRA rules, so now there's a lot more power with the tribal nations. We're not going to be able to go down this aisle, but I did want to show you. This is what I pick up a month. And this is fairly typical. I buy about this many pieces for the museum a month. So this museum is not like what you see when you go into most museums. It is not static. It is not something that was put together 100 years ago. Just as a case in point, right here, well, this is more stuff that I just picked up. The pieces that are on the rug were photographed was what I picked up last month. This is what I picked up this month. But these boxes, there are 4,000 pieces of Taino art in these boxes that I picked up last September. This is more Mesoamerican. Oh my God! And that's glazeware. That's Rio Grande glazeware. I have two of those getting repaired right now. But there you go with another Pekin Casas Grandes jar, magnificent jar. Lots of South American stuff here. These are all from Colombia, and Colombia had, oh my God, some of their Figaro works from Colombia are just amazing. There's another Pekin Casas. Now a lot of these, you got to watch out with the Pekin Casas because they were very enterprising in the 1960s and 70s, and they would make ones like this and then bury them into a manure pile and make them look old, and they're not old. But I've gotten better in my old age at being able to differentiate between the old ones and the new ones. I really do like Casas art. I have some brand new ones like these up here that I've picked up over the years, and particularly when they have the human figures, I find those fascinating. But you can get lost in Casas. It's an entire. There's over 300 potters down there, and it's an entire genre into itself. So if you get lost in Casas, expect to spend some money, and you damn well better have some room in your house because they do bigger pieces. Bottom shelf down here, I have a little bit of stuff that I need to really put away, but it's from Bruce Bernstein, who was former director of SWAIA and worked at the Museum of the American Indian. He sold me his collection of cultural appropriation items, and I have a lot more. This is the second iteration of the Pueblo Treasures Museum. There will be a third, And the third, when I do it, is going to be absolutely incredible because I'm going to spend real money on it. And we're talking millions. And the third iteration of the Pueblo Treasure Museum, I will be putting out an entire area of, looky here, here's what, like, yeah, these Boy Scouts, these white boys down in La Junta, Colorado, dressing themselves up as deer dancers and cachinas and making little belt buckles, calling themselves the Koshari dancers. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, this people do the damnedest things. I went there. I actually had to see it. I went to La Junta, Colorado, which is, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, east of Pueblo. I mean, their building is great, and they have some really neat stuff in it. But it was creepy. I mean, it's just creepy. White folks trying to emulate Pueblo religion in that direct of a fashion, where they actually try to do the same dances. It's gross. And I got to make it clear, I am not native. I was born and raised in Germany, and I don't have a native drop in me anywhere. So forget about that crap. When I talk about white folk, I'm talking about me too. But that kind of stuff is maddening. Now, this is something that is a lifetime project in and of itself. These are all sacred amulets from the Caribbean. When Columbus showed up in 1492, as we all know, first thing he and his guys started doing was raping and murdering everybody around there. That's because, the conquistadors were essentially a modern biker gang. They showed up on their motorcycles, which they called horses, and brought their vicious fighting dogs that they had used to conquer the Moors, and started just enslaving. Particularly after when he showed up with his first 3 ships, he couldn't do a lot. But when he came back with the second batch, he brought back 3,000 fighters, and they started killing everybody in sight because the Taino had made the mistake of finding gold in the alluvial sands of some of the rivers in Hispaniola, Santo Domingo, and so Columbus and his guys wanted the gold, so they started enslaving the men and forcing them to mine gold for them until they died of exhaustion. And so the Taino, there were some Taino people who managed to get into villages in the hinterlands of places like Cuba and Hispaniola, but a great many of them, guesstimates that I've heard were upwards of 5 million Taino people were murdered. And in case you're wondering, here's sort of a visual representation of where the Taino were. It cut off right about here. These were the Caribs down here in the Lesser Antilles, but up here, you had Puerto Rico, you had the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and you had the eastern side of Cuba, and then up into the Bahamas. This was all, excuse me, where the Taino people were in 1492. By 60 years later, 1550, they were functionally extinct. And they left descendants. There's a lot of Taino blood that's out there. There are people that are trying to revive the Taino culture and traditions, and I give them kudos for that. But it's a difficult thing to try and bring back a culture that faced genocide. But one of the things that's super interesting about the Taino is that they carved stone. Most of these figures here are stone, although I have figures that are also shell. I have figures that are wood. I have figures that are carved from bone. A lot of manatee bone. Here's a manatee rib bone right here. a lot of their figures were based on going into these hallucinatory trances. They would use the cahoba plant, seeds of the cahoba tree, and they would ingest those the way that the people in the American Southwest ingested datura. And you had to be really careful doing this. And so this was actually what was called a vomit stick. They would take these and they would put these down their throats and try to purge themselves before they went off on these hallucinogenic trips using cahoba, because otherwise it led to bad things. But what I find most fascinating is that they were able to carve these little, these were like little personal semis that they would create. They were able to carve these out of stone, like this is just a rock that somebody picked up in a river. And then they carved these without the use of metal. Now think about that for a second. They had to use stone on stone to do their carving. Pretty crazy. What you're looking at here, by the way, is about the extent of all the books that are available on the Taino. It is not an area that is well studied. There is one here on their culture, and then also the hallucinogenic implements that they used. But this entire collection, all 4,000 pieces, and I mean, look at it. Every box is full. These all came from one gentleman who spent years, over 30 years, bidding at auctions, and he had a heart attack during COVID and died. And it's so sad. So there was no one who actually had an interest in the Taino culture that was willing to buy it. And so I ended up picking it up, and it will be an entire separate gallery that will be connected onto the Pueblo Treasures Museum. Over here I have an area where I try to repair things that are shipped to me that have been broken, which happens a lot. That's one of the really sad things about purchasing things online, is that not everyone realizes that things can get broken. But then I buy other pieces. I'm going to try and have this beautiful Mayan bowl restored. I'm going to pay more than I paid for the bowl in restoration fees, but I think that this beautiful raised relief Mayan bowl can be brought back to life. And that's part of what I do here, is to try and cherish and bring things back to life, and to really try to agglomerate in one place what is otherwise scattered all over the world. I tell people this is more of an orphanage than it is a gallery, because these are all the children of the Pueblos, and what I'm trying to do is to bring them home. Number one question I always get is, well, what are you going to do with all them potteries when you're dead? Well, I'm a nihilist, and so I'm not really into the what are you going to do when you're dead, because you're dead, and I don't really give a shit. So it doesn't really matter a lot to me. But I don't want the collection broken up, so I am trying to figure out something to do with it. The problem that you run into is that Deb Holland, remember her? We talked about her earlier. I love Deb Holland to death, from Laguna Pueblo, first Pueblo person to be put in charge of the Department of the Interior. Did lots and lots of good things. Her preservation work with Bears Ears was wonderful. But, big ass but, she had her staff alter the wording of NAGPRA, the Native American Graves and Repatriation Act, to light a fire under museums to give back all of the native remains, ancestral remains that they're holding. I'm totally in favor of that, okay? Museums should not have the bones of ancient peoples. That's just ridiculous. I don't believe in that, okay? So, by the way, we're in Santa Clara, and we're in my office now. This is my sanctum sanctorum, where I get to hang out every day with my dog. And I love being here. This is a great room. But anyway, so Deb Holland had her people write this thing that said that museums are not allowed to show anything unless they have permission of the particular tribal nation from which that piece originated. Well, that is an incredibly cumbersome process. So it's gone from museums putting stuff out and then waiting for a tribal nation to raise an objection to where now they can't put anything out legally until they have written permission in hand. So a lot of museums, the American Museum of Natural History in New York being prime example, have shuttered their halls because they don't have permissions yet. I don't have to worry about that because there's a carve out in NAGPRA for private collections, and that's why this Pueblo Treasures Museum is mine. It's not open to the public per se. Never taken a penny of public money, tax breaks, anything, any way, shape, or form. I paid for this out of my own pocket. Okay, so I can do whatever in the hell I want. And nobody can tell me diddly shit about what I can or can't display. But that having been said, I try to be deferential and understanding. And I try to keep in mind that I'm a guardian, that I'm a trustee of the aesthetic of thousands of Pueblo people who are no longer with us. Now, the descendants of those people come from every flavor under the sun, and they have every opinion under the sun. That's all well and good. I don't really care one way or another. My being deferential does not mean that I roll over for anybody's. I did want to point out, over here in this case, I am particularly fond of the Margaret Tafoya family and their potteries. These were pieces up here in the top row. These tall neck pieces were all by Tomasita Tafoya, who was Margaret Tafoya's older sister, who actually taught her how to pot. That magnificent jar, two-handled jar, is by Serafina Tafoya, Margaret Tafoya's mother. And then, oh my God, you start looking around here. I mean, these are all Margaret Tafoya's and Manuel Tafoya's. You've got, well, you've you got Jason Abelacher doing magnificent pieces. He's become one of my best friends in recent years, and I respect him so much. Oh my God. The work that he's doing now, his grandmother would be so proud of him. Great-grandmother, yes, great-grandmother. Cornmeal boxes? Oh, yeah. Serafina Tafoya? Oh, yeah. She couldn't read or write, so her son, Manuel, helped her decorate and signed them. There are 6 Serafina Tafoya boxes known, and Charles King has one. One was in a Sotheby's auction in about 1990 and has since disappeared. And I have the other 4. Jason Abelacher had this one and this one cracked. And he had it sitting on a shelf just gathering dust, and a little gecko that died in there, a little lizard. And I got that from him. Because I just think it's magnificent. I mean, that beautiful Tafoya artwork is just so cool. And then here's more Manuel Tafoya. Nathan Youngblood here did this canteen with his grandmother, Margaret Tafoya. More Margaret Tafoyas. Oh my God, Serafina Tafoyas, Margaret Tafoyas. Mary Archuleta down the bottom there. These are Margaret Tafoyas. Those are Serafina Tafoya wedding jars. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And remember I said I was a drag queen? This is some of my jewelry. I'm actually not just a drag queen. Tsarina of the Americas in the international court system, but that's neither here nor there as regards Pueblo pottery. So that's kind of it. This is Manuel Tafoya, or excuse me, oh my God, this is Van Gutierrez, who worked with Manuel Tafoya. The two of them lived not that far apart from each other, and just to give you an idea, I'm going to close with this thing. Right here in this cabinet, which features Lila and Van Gutierrez works, there's about 105 works by them, and that is more than every museum in America put together. I believe there are fewer than 500 Lila and Van pieces that are extant, and most are in collections scattered all to hell and gone. But right here, if you want to study Van Gutierrez and the evolution of his art style, you can learn a lot just coming in here. And I'll give you just one real quick example. This is one of my favorite pieces in my entire collection. In 1922, they opened up King Tut's tomb, and it became a mania in America to look at Egyptology and hieroglyphics and all that kind of stuff. Well, this is an Abanyu that Van did in hieroglyphics. The entire jar is done in his interpretation of what would be Pueblo hieroglyphics. Too cool. And if you want to see an evolution of that, then he took that and he took an Abanyu and he did with that right angle there where the head is, just too cool. So these are the kinds of things, I mean, later on his Abanyus became the more traditional Abanyus like this that we all know from the Gutierrez family. But I love being able to show how things evolved over a period of time, and this Egyptology didn't occur until the 20s. But here's another one that's sort of a branch off on that as it does the stair step going through the terraces. Just cooler than hell. And this is the reason why all of us should cherish Pueblo artwork, not just as objects, but also as a part of America that really needs to be understood better and loved more, because this is the heritage of the Pueblo people, but also we live here now too. And so for all of us, this is part of the heritage of America. And here at the Pueblo Treasures Museum, this is what I try to preserve. And I gotta leave now. I gotta go pack because I have to go to San Francisco tomorrow. But I'll be going through Santa Fe, picking up some pieces that I already bought on the way, and continuing to add nonstop. When I get back, this flat area in the floor will be filled with boxes. It always is when I come home from a trip, and I will have yet even more to unpack. So that's it. I hope that you enjoyed my little tour. I could have shown you more, I could have talked about more, but God, when you come here, if you think you can see the museum in under an hour, you're fooling yourself. I mean, this museum is really cool, and there's just so much that you can see, and that's the goal. I want to make it so that it goes way beyond anything. It's immersive, and it's mind-blowing, and that more than anything is the goal. I want to make your life better, and I want you to really feel good for having taken the time to come here and visit me. If you do want to visit, the way to get a hold of me, my email address is Chuck Rozanski, one word, Chuck Rozanski @gmail.com. I travel a lot. so I can't always be here for tours. But if I at all can, I will take the time, and I will gladly give you even more about these beautiful pieces of ceramic work. So thanks for taking the time, and I hope you have a great day.